Cummins passed away 2 years ago. But I was in there, Sills was there, he was a former Attorney General.
Okay.
He was in a wheelchair, he was the founder of, they called him the General.
Yeah, yeah, they still do. Yeah, so when I worked for the Attorney General's office for 10 years, we would say, "Good morning, General."
Yeah, I guess they like that.
Yeah.
Actually, you worked at the Attorney General's office for a
Yeah,
while?
I was the DAG. Yeah. And
What is DAG?
Deputy Attorney General.
Oh.
So all of the lawyers for the state are called
Oh.
DAGs, whether it's criminal, civil,
Really?
all of those. Technically, DE's chief, Deputy Attorneys General.
Is that what all the district attorneys are in New Jersey?
So the equivalent of the district attorney is the county prosecutors. So they would not be because they're county.
You're state.
And I'm state.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cool. It was okay.
How long did you do that?
About 10 years.
And then what?
And then I had decided after about a year. So I've only been practicing. I've only been 11 years. No, actually, I started clerking. I started
In Union
County, the civil court judge.
And I guess, do you need the law to keep up here?
You don't, but so I could, in theory, I could live in labs, but I'm also staff counsel to the medical society. So for that, I need the people license. Although I have to say, 90% of the it's not, and
Cool. Interesting.
yeah, which is how I didn't appreciate just how hard it can be until I did something else. You're not a lawyer, are you?
No.
Oh, good. Don't want to insult anybody.
No, I'm a chemist, and these days mostly a purchasing manager.
Even people that are lawyers tend to disparage their trade. Even if they enjoy it, they say they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You say you're not in law, they say, oh, you're smart. You're a smart one.
I always say I want my kids to be happy. That's all I want. And I'll be proud of them no matter what medical school they get into.
But the famous thing was like when you went to law school, the guy would say, well, first third of you will become lawyers. The top third of you will become judges. And the second third of you will become lawyers. And the bottom third of you will become rich. They won't be lawyers. Which is sort of what happened in my class. My friends that left law did very well, but some of them did well in there.
So what was that like 40 years ago?
Isn't that different from where it is now, except the houses are mostly smaller, and now they've slowly been built up. It's not like some anything like it.
That's 41 years ago. That's only 1981.
1981. Yeah, the world was pretty much the same way. I mean, I suppose people might be a little more elitist, a little fancier, a few more BMWs. I don't feel like there's been a revolution. The revolution was before that.
At least we have people here.
That's one of the things I like.
Yeah, it's a good turnout.
As opposed to like
The last time we played that it wasn't it. As I recall, it was not well attended.
And up until recently, like, there was no million-dollar houses.
Yeah, no, this is.
This is such a big room.
But you don't
Yeah,
have
I know.
the,
It feels
still don't
like
have
we're
any
lost in the.
Yeah.
semi-monster houses like you have in Ridgewood. Not the
This is
Ridgewood
good.
South River
Nice,
or
nice.
Franklin Lakes. There's some pretty good houses. So it's smaller schools. They're very old doors. Theoretically less.
Black and white.
I assume you're a kid.
Yeah, they did that.
Kid or
We even go to private school.
Sorry about that.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, it's nothing.
Sure.
Nothing, just not right.
This is a little intro, guys. Watch me for the cue. Starting. So we are on bracketed page 130 in your prayer book, which is not the normal page we start on. So bracketed page 130. I'll tell you where. The top of the page.
Welcome. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
This Shabbat is special, like every Shabbat is special because it is our day of rest. It's our day of celebrating just existing, just being and being together. And we are celebrating an upcoming bat mitzvah tomorrow. And we are also fortunate to have Dan Grunfeld joining us, who's the author of this book. Many of you have this book now, are reading it, and we'll hear from Dan later. And one thing I was thinking about in your book, Dan, was that writing as the sort of grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, you reflect a lot on what it means to carry that legacy. You know, and many of us, I think, for many of us, that feels like a relevant question. And part of carrying that legacy is memory, right? And commemorating the history of the people who survived and who perished in the Holocaust. And part of that legacy is living, right? Living as Jews, celebrating as Jews, finding joy in our ability to gather like we are tonight for Shabbat. So with that kind of joy, we move forward into our Shabbat service with Lecha Dodi on page 138.
All of our page numbers are in brackets, so if the book is new to you, bracketed page 138 and bracketed pages following. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, ish v'yad le'av
rise and face the entrance to whatever space you're in the sanctuary or at home. Verse 9.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. הללויה, הללויה, hallelujah.
We have a full house tonight, and so take a moment to find someone you don't know, maybe, and greet them, wish them a Shabbat Shalom, and you can do so on Lives Control also. Page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bohem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Archuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 120, Natasha and David and Raina and Diana, if you would join me at the Shabbat candles as we offer this ritual to welcome Shabbat together. Oh, hear our prayer, we sing to you. Be gracious to the ones we love, and bless them with goodness and mercy. Shabbat. So as we continue to welcome Shabbat, I'm going to stand here and give you your book. Perfect. We are going to offer Kiddush in a couple of minutes, or maybe a minute, we'll see. But before we do, we're going to add our blessings to the Kiddush cup, right? Not literally, but what are the things that you're feeling grateful for that you would want to lift up, that we would put in here? This cup, remember, this has got grape juice in it. We offer it for Kiddush because really Kiddush is about Shabbat. The grape juice is a vehicle to sanctify Shabbat. So we can sanctify, we can make Shabbat holy lots of different ways, and we like to make this Shabbat even more holy by sharing our blessings with each other. You guys can come, just relax. Raina, come over here. It's good, I promise. What are you celebrating this Shabbat? What's been good this week? Susan. Susan's darling daughter is visiting. That's awesome. Darling daughter, what is your name? Hi, Elizabeth. We're glad you're here. And I'm repeating things I know you hear, but on live control, people don't hear unless they go into the microphone. So awesome. Welcome. What else is good? Victoria. Veronica. Different V name.
Also, I haven't been here in a while. It's good to be back.
Good. We're glad you're here, and I'm enjoying the sparkles as they hit us from your mask back here. It's beautiful. What else is good? Florette. When? Oh, Sunday. That is also Rabbi Frischman's birthday, isn't it? Yes. Cool. Not twins. Thank you for the clarification. That is maybe worth like a little happy birthday at the end of the service for almost 90, Ron. I think maybe we'll come back. We'll swing back to that. What do you say, team? All right, good. Happy birthday, Ron. What else is good? You don't have to beat 90, by the way. It could be something else. Somebody has a hand that I don't see? Come on, things are good. Come on, things are good. This is a nice spiritual exercise. Yes, again. Hanukkah is near, indeed. We have so many things happen before Hanukkah. It doesn't feel quite that near. But yes, Hanukkah is in fact near. Dig, people. What is good? We're celebrating the awesome Benot Mitzvah of Raina and Diana Fitterman, and that is definitely good. We'll come back to you guys in a sec, all right? Wonderful. Elizabeth. Two things. Awesome. Rabbi Scheffler's installation last Friday was pretty special. And our 175th anniversary celebration next Friday. Excellent. Yeah, David. Great. Brittany Grimes is home. That is excellent. Yes, that is good. Griner, yes. I'm repeating what you said, but yes. Very good news. Very good news. All right, good. One more. Live control. Oh, let's see what we have here. Okay. Joanne says that she enjoyed several family virtual gatherings this week. Whoa, Karen Levine had a second grandson this afternoon. Mason Eliyahu, born to Jessica and Noah, who I made married, so feeling very much loved about that. And Lisa Dougal said their 3-year-old cousin is out of the hospital and doing well, which is excellent news. All right, any last burning blessings to share? No?
Yes, the worship band.
The worship band is here. Indeed, I would have gotten there later, but we'll do it now. So Charlie Good and Bob Kaufman and Josh Bengal and Larry Silverman, and of course, Janet Montroy. We're so glad you're here, and we're sending all of our well wishes to our friends who are recuperating from all the various ailments that plague literally us these days, so in the worship band and beyond. So we're sending everybody wishes for full recoveries and feeling good. Okay, and we're really glad you're here, and we love your music, so thank you for practicing and playing with us. Breathe. I promise this is going to be easy tonight. Okay, Diana and Raina, you are among the people for whom when we say you will always be home at Barnard, it's kind of true because you have always had a home at Barnard, right? When did they start preschool here? Rising Stars, right? So that was probably one of the first classes that we even had then. I also kind of can't remember Barnert without your faces and your faces here. And all the times that we've already been on this bima together, right? Remember at like Fantastic's graduation, standing under a talit, and all the things that we anticipated getting here for this day, and here we are. And so we offer you these ritual items, Kiddush cup and Chanukiah, which you can use very soon. And we want you to remember, and I don't know how you couldn't, but especially to remember that these ritual items, they tether you to us. Whether the us is Barnard or the Jewish people, but for sure us Barnard and me and all of the people here and the community, right? No matter where you are in the world or how old you get, we are always tethered to each other. And these ritual items remind us of that tether to our larger Jewish people through holiday celebrations, and also to your specific communities with these specific ritual items. And they are symbolic of our communal pride and celebration of you. Okay? All right, I'll give them to you later. That was just for show. So I was thinking about how I would talk with you here this evening. And there is something about you as a pair. You are so different from each other in so many ways. But every time I came up with a difference, actually, I thought it was actually a similarity. Like the way that you present in the world, it on the surface looks maybe different, right? You have different personalities that come out when you speak and when you hang out with your friends. Similar, but not all exactly the same interests and skills. But what you share is a deep connection to the things you do and the people you love, right? Both of you have a straight eye right to justice, to things that are not right, whether it's with a person who's in front of you or some bigger issue in the world. Both of you show up for your family and for each other and for your friends in kindness, sometimes with a little bit more seriousness and sometimes with beautiful lightness and humor. But the intensity with which you approach life and all the things that matter is something, it's a language that you share, that you speak sort of with different accents, but in the same beautiful way. And we are so excited to, I know your mom is, it's okay. They're supposed to be doing that. That's the right thing on a bat mitzvah weekend, right? We talked about that. We celebrate both of you together. We celebrate healthy sibling relationships this Shabbat. Again, like last week, we talked about all the bad examples. You're still in the middle of it this week. We celebrate you individually, and we are so proud to welcome you this Shabbat as Jewish young adults as you become, each of you bat mitzvah together, benot mitzvah. So Diana and Reina are going to lead us in Kiddush, which is on page 123 brackets of your Siddur. Please rise.
Say Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit.
Ki hu yom techila L'mikrei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh haShabbat.
So we're going to stay standing for Baruch Hu on page 146.
Yai lai, yai lai, 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 yai lai, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Page 154, please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 157 at the top, please join me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 161 at the top. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162.
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Page 164, please rise.
וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ובגאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך
silently through page 178, sitting or standing as is your custom.
like you're similarly heighted, could I invite you onto the bima? We're going to do Torah reading first. You can keep singing while we undress, that's fine. You can be seated. Easier for me if you're the same height, you know? Yeah. So I'm going to cut right to the Torah reading tonight. I think we're going to offer Torah blessings together. So if you'd like the words, they're on bracketed page 368. And I'm picking up like at only 3 verses. One of you will recognize it. I don't remember which one. Right in the middle of the Jacob wrestling with the angel story. So you'll hear that here as we sort of head into getting ready to learn with Dan Grunfeld about all of the ways that we learn from struggle and learn from opportunities to grow. Doesn't make them necessarily good, but there's things there for us to learn from. And so you'll hear, I'll translate after I chant these verses where Jacob is like really coming out of this struggle with the angel. So can we Torah blessing together? I'm going to count you in. 1, 2, 3. Baruch hu et Adonai Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Vayomer elav ma shemecha Vayomer Yaakov Vayomer lo Yaakov Ye'amer od shimcha Ki im Yisrael Ki sarita im Elohim Ve'im anashim vatuchal Vayishal Yaakov Vayomer Hagidana shemecha Vayomer Lama zeh tish'al ishmi Vayivarech oto sham. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, it is Jacob. And he said, no longer Jacob, you shall be called, shall be your name, for it is now Yisrael. For you have struggled with God and with people, and you succeeded, you have prevailed. And asked Jacob, he said, please pray tell me your name. And he said, why is it this that you ask of me about my name? And he blessed, or he departed from him there. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Please rise again. Just maybe a little dressing music. What do you say, Jana?
So now in lieu of a Dvar Torah, we're going to invite Dan Grunfeld up to share his words of Torah. We often say that each of us has Torah to teach, and much of it you wrote in this book, which is really an incredible book. We distributed nearly all of our copies, but you can still find it places where books are sold after Shabbos. I want to briefly introduce Dan just to say that he is a former professional basketball player and an acclaimed writer. He graduated from Stanford University and then went on to play professional basketball for 8 seasons in top leagues around the world. And so he's played in Germany, in Spain, and Israel. And then as a writer, his work has been featured in Sports Illustrated, the Jerusalem Post, and on NBC News. And then more recently, he went to business school. You have a whole new chapter living in DC. And I want to add that Dan also has very personal connections to Barnard Temple. He'll speak more about growing up in this area. But he's here tonight with his best friend, Dan Coulter, who is a preschool dad in our community. And also, your wives are sisters, right? So, okay. So,
That's right.
so
Yeah.
lots of very personal kind of Hamish connections here, and we're so glad to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And here, I'll let you.
All right. Rabbi Sheffer, thank you so much, Rabbi Steiner. It's great to be here. Yes, Dan Coulter is my best friend and my brother-in-law. So that's a great thing to happen. And I want to thank my friend Dan Powers as well, who we went to high school together. I've lived all over the world, and I've certainly traveled all over the country to speak about my book. But this is very special for me because this is the first time I've been able to speak in my hometown about this story. So I grew up in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, and so it's great to be back here and with my best friend, who's my nephew, goes to this preschool. So really, really wonderful to be here, and thank you for having me. Also want to congratulate the bat mitzvahs, and also to say thank you for the great music today. So in every way, this has been great, and really excited to tell you a little bit about my family's story. So I'll take about 15 minutes, and my wish is that you get the same level of hope and inspiration that I've always got from my family's story. It's certainly relevant today as we turn on the news and we hear about anti-Semitism and the importance of having pride in who we are and understanding our Jewish identities, and certainly the themes that were discussed earlier around perseverance and overcoming adversity. And I think my family's story is a good example of that. So let me tell you a little bit about it. As was mentioned, I played basketball at Stanford University. I had a nice career there, and I played 8 years professionally. But my dad is the reason why my family's name is synonymous with the game of basketball. My dad is one of the most prominent Jewish athletes of all time. He was a high school basketball All-American out of Queens, New York, a college basketball All-American at the University of Tennessee, and a longtime NBA player and executive. His name is Ernie Grunfeld. Many of you might have heard of him. He played for the New York Knicks, where he wore number 18. And we all know number 18 is the most symbolic number in Judaism. My dad's career in sports and in basketball is very well known. But what is not well known, or at least wasn't until my book came out a year ago, is that my dad is the only athlete in NBA history whose parents survived the Holocaust. I did a 1.5 years of research preparing to write my book. That research suggests that my dad is the only athlete in any of the major American sports leagues. So Major League Baseball, National Football League, National Hockey League, and the NBA. Out of all those leagues, my dad is the only athlete whose parents are Holocaust survivors. Despite the success that I had on the basketball court and that my dad had certainly as an athlete, it's my grandmother who is the star of our family and the star of our story. My grandma is a Holocaust survivor. She survived the war in Budapest. You'll all be happy to know she is 97 years old. Thank you, yeah. Lives in the Bay Area. We FaceTimed right before I came tonight. We talk every day. And yeah, I always tell people my grandmother is not only my hero, she is also a hero. And I'll tell you a little bit about her story, and you'll understand why I say that. And so my grandma is from Transylvania, on the border of Romania and Hungary. I talk to groups of youngsters all the time, and I ask them about Transylvania, and they think it's a fictional place where Dracula lives and all these things, but it's an actual real place. It's where my grandparents are from, it's where my dad's from. And so my grandmother was born into a big, happy, loving Orthodox Jewish family. She had 9 siblings, so there was 10 of them, and she had 2 loving parents. If any of you have read my book, you know that I go into great detail about what life was like before the Holocaust, because we know the numbers, right? We know 6 million Jews and millions more were killed. But these weren't just numbers, they were people. You know, they were the people that my grandmother loved the most in the world. And so it was very important to me to convey the humanity behind the people that were affected by the Holocaust. And so I tell my family members stories, and I FaceTime with my grandmother every day, as I mentioned, and I have 2 young boys at home. They're always running amok, making a lot of noise, as young boys tend to do. And my grandmother says to me, that's music to me, because that's what my home was like. You know, she had 9 siblings, and they were just a big, happy family. They had no technology, no electricity, no running water. There weren't even roads in the village that she grew up in, but they had a lot of love and a lot of laughter. When the Nazis invaded, my grandmother happened to be visiting an older sister in Budapest. They got a letter from my great-grandfather almost immediately that said, come home now. And so they packed their suitcases and they got ready to go to the train station. The following day, right before they were about to leave, they got another letter from my great-grandfather, and all it said was, if you can, stay where you are. And that was the last communication that my grandmother ever had with her beloved father. He was taken to Auschwitz, where he was killed. His name was Solomon Samuel. My oldest son's name is Solomon, after him. And of course, we know in the Jewish tradition to pass on names of beloved family members, and certainly I did that in my family. And so my grandmother says to this day that it was that second letter from her father that saved her from Auschwitz. She thinks that my great-grandfather panicked at first and said, come home, but then realized my daughters will have a better chance of surviving in a big city as opposed to our small village where everyone knows each other. And he was right. My grandmother had a chance to survive on the run in Budapest. She hid in bombed-out buildings. She scraped and clawed for food wherever she could find it. If you've read my book, or if you know my grandmother, like Dan does, you'll know that she has every quality and characteristic that a person would need to survive something like the Holocaust. She's smart, she's savvy, she's disciplined, she has a great will to live, but she also has tremendous humility, because she says that you could have had all those things back then, and it didn't matter. You needed luck, and you needed help. And my grandmother had both those things. And so if you read my book, you'll read about the soldier who gave her an extra piece of bread when she was starving in Budapest. Someone gave her a kiss on the cheek, which gave her hope. Someone gave her an extra pair of pants when she was freezing. The most help she got was from Swedish diplomat Raoul Wallenberg, who I'm sure many of you are aware of. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. is on Raoul Wallenberg Way. He's regarded as one of the greatest heroes of the Holocaust, credited for saving roughly 100,000 Jews in Budapest. My grandmother was one of them. But he saved her life twice. And so the first way was he issued protective passports for Jews in Budapest called Schutzpasses. My grandmother got one for herself, but she risked her life to go back to the embassy time after time to obtain passes for others. So she was able to get 17 passes that she distributed to other people. So when I told you a few minutes ago that my grandmother's not only my hero, she's also a hero, it's the truth. Eventually, that document was no longer recognized. My grandmother was captured by the Nazis. She was thrown in the Budapest ghetto. It was there that she was reunited with one of her brothers. She didn't know what was happening with her family members, but one of her brothers was in the ghetto with her, and at the end of the war, they saw 20 Nazis enter the ghetto with machine guns over their shoulders, and word quickly spread that they were there to kill the remaining 80,000 Jews in the ghetto. And so my grandmother and her brother raced up the steps of the building that they were sleeping in. They found a small attic space where they hid. There was room for about 4 or 5 people. There were more than a dozen in there, packed, fighting for their lives, and they waited for 10 minutes, and then 20 minutes, and then an hour, and nothing happened. Eventually, they went to check, and the Nazis had retreated, and the ghetto was clear. That's how my grandmother survived the Holocaust. She narrowly evaded a massacre. She didn't understand why the Nazis retreated that day, and that was 1945. In 1985, when my grandma was living in the Bay Area, my dad is a big basketball star in the NBA, a movie was made about Raoul Wallenberg's life. Richard Chamberlain played the title character. And it was in that movie that my grandmother saw one of the final scenes of Wallenberg learning of the order to massacre the remaining Jews in the Budapest ghetto. He gets in his car, he races to the gates of the ghetto, and he confronts the general, and he tells them, I will personally guarantee that you will hang for this if you harm these people. They're innocent, let them go. And it was Wallenberg who talked the general out of committing the massacre. So it took my grandmother 40 years to learn that Wallenberg saved her life, not just once, but twice during the war. So I talk to groups of young people all the time, and I tell them, heroes do and should look different, but if you want to know what a real hero looks like, Google Raoul Wallenberg's face. I'm still someone who means a lot to my family for what he did. I certainly wouldn't be standing here today without him. I was with my grandmother before Thanksgiving, and we were talking about Wallenberg, and she still sheds tears about him. She says, he did everything for us, and there was nothing we could do for him because he was apprehended by the Russians after the war, and he was never seen again. And she shared a detail with me that I wish she would have told me before I wrote my book, because I certainly would have put it in there, but he was 32 years old when he did all this. In my mind, he's a hero, and you picture him larger than life, but he was just a young man. And so that's how my grandmother survived. When she returned home to that happy home that I described, empty, completely looted, she would learn that 5 of her siblings and both of her parents were killed. So 7 of her immediate family members. At this time, my grandfather was in a forced labor camp in Hungary. And when he got home, he would learn that both of his sisters and both of his parents were killed. And so, we talked about my dad, and I'll talk more about him. My dad never had grandparents. They were all killed in Auschwitz. And so while I was researching my book, I remember asking my grandmother, how do you go on? How do you possibly keep going after experiencing this much tragedy? And she said, we wanted to rebuild. That's the human instinct. You lose so much, you want to reclaim. And so my grandparents got married shortly after coming home, and they had my uncle not long thereafter, and my dad was born 8 years later. And so we talked about my dad as a basketball star, an NBA player. He was born under communism in Romania. And I remember, when I was doing my research for the book, asking my dad, what was it like to grow up so poor? Because he used an outhouse, and it was really bad conditions, and he didn't hesitate. He said, I didn't grow up poor. I had family, I had food on the table, I had a lot of love. I didn't know anything better. And it's a really interesting perspective. And in my book, I juxtapose my upbringing with my dad's, and of course, I was born into such different circumstances, great privilege. I was born in Livingston, New Jersey, at St. Barnabas Hospital. My birth was planned around the NBA basketball calendar. And so I joke in the book, a lot of Jewish men plan their son's birth around the Knicks, but my dad was the only Jewish guy actually playing in the Knicks game. My dad had 2 long road trips. I was delivered by C-section, and so my parents planned it. So my dad went on a road trip, was there for my birth, went on another road trip, and was there for my bris, which, by the way, was catered by the Carnegie Deli. That's a true story. So in so many ways, I was born into this great privilege. My dad was born so differently, right? Under communism in Romania. It took my family a decade to get visas to be able to leave communism. And it was actually the state of Israel that paid for each Jewish family that the communists would allow to leave. My family, and I hope some of you will read my book, you'll learn how my grandparents smuggled all of their black market money, the illegal money they had accumulated out of Romania. They weren't allowed to take anything of value with them, but they smuggled all their money out. There's 2 different kind of plans to smuggle their money. The second one, they elicited the help of one of the greatest comedians in the United States, who agreed to help them and smuggled their money out of communism and sent it to my great uncle in the Bronx. That comedian is Buddy Hackett. And so you can read the book to figure out how, why truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. My family spent 6 months in Rome after leaving Romania, and they were, at the last minute, they worked with the organization HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, who helped my family come to America. And so in 1964, my family landed at JFK Airport. My dad spoke fluent Hungarian, Romanian, and Italian, didn't speak a word of English, and had never touched a basketball. I mentioned my uncle, 8 years older than my dad. What my dad called my uncle in their native language, Hungarian, translates to English as my king. So you can imagine a little brother calling his big brother my king. A few months after arriving in the United States, my uncle was diagnosed with leukemia, and he passed away within a year. And so despite all the loss from the Holocaust, this is the greatest tragedy that befell my family. For my grandparents to have survived, but then to lose a son, and for my dad to lose a brother, it's a hole that still can't be filled. I write about it very honestly in the book. I'm named after my uncle. His name was Lutzi in Hungarian, but Leslie in English, and my middle name is Leslie after him. And so, I carry that responsibility with me, and it's an obligation, to carry his legacy forward. But you could put yourself in my dad's shoes at this point in time. Doesn't speak English, so kids in New York City are making fun of him. He's a fish out of water. My grandparents have to work 6 and 7 days a week, right, to earn a living. They didn't get an education because of the Holocaust. They're new to this country. And my dad loses his hero. So he's in Queens, New York. He does what all the other kids are doing. He goes to the playground, as he says it, to make friends, to learn English, and really to heal from that loss. And he starts playing basketball. And he always said, well, if you could play basketball in the neighborhood, that's how you made friends. And so I could say to him, well, you must have made a lot of friends. Because sometimes things just work, and I don't think my dad would have flown so far so fast with the game of basketball had he not been moving away from such tragedy. For him, the game was salvation. And my book is called By the Grace of the Game, right? And the game really shined its light on my family when we needed it. It's a great commentary on, perseverance, belief, continuing to move forward despite all the hardships that we face. And so it didn't take long for my dad to be one of the best players in the neighborhood, then one of the best players at the park, then one of the best players in the city, and then the country. And so by his senior year in high school, he was an All-American. He had his choice of colleges, and he chose to play at the University of Tennessee, where he teamed with another great player from New York, Bernard King, who I'm sure many of you know, who lived in Franklin Lakes, by the way. My dad and Bernard played together in the NBA after their college careers with the Knicks, and Bernard lived up the street from us in Franklin Lakes. My dad and Bernard were called the Ernie and Bernie Show. They're regarded as one of the greatest duos in college basketball history. Bernard King is a black man from Brooklyn, New York. My dad is this white immigrant from Queens, New York. They're from the same city, but from very different worlds. And the game brought them together. I call Bernard Uncle B. They still speak once a month. It's a really interesting commentary on what the game can do, right? And it's illustrated in my family story, right? What the game did for our family, but also the game did amazing things for those two guys in their relationship. And so when my dad was a sophomore at the University of Tennessee, he was invited to try to play for the United States basketball team. If you read my book, you could learn about how it took my dad 24 hours to become an American citizen, where it had taken his family 10 years to become citizens, but his basketball ability helped expedite those processes. So he played for the United States team in a kind of a smaller tournament, and then after his junior year in 1976, he was invited to try out for the United States Olympic team, and he made the team. And so a dozen years after arriving in the United States as that boy who lost his brother and didn't speak the language, my dad stood on top of the Olympic podium as a gold medalist for the United States of America. My grandparents closed their fabric store in the Bronx and drove from New York City to Montreal, Canada to watch my dad become a gold medalist. So by the grace of the game, right? That's how this all happened. And I have my own journey, which I detail in the book. Again, born into privilege, born much differently, growing up in this beautiful, beautiful town that we sit today, but carrying this legacy, understanding my history, understanding what's at stake when people aren't treated fairly, why we should continue to work hard, continue to believe, continue to pursue our dreams. I had the luxury of dreaming big because I had seen what my grandparents overcame and what my dad went through and overcame. I wanted to go to Stanford University from the time I was in 7th grade. My grandmother lives 25 minutes from campus, and that became my dream. And as I write in my book, which is the truth, that was a long shot for a slow Jewish kid from the suburbs. Usually when I tell that story, they don't know the suburbs are outside these windows, right? This is where I'm from. And Stanford had been to the Final Four just, at that time. They were one of the top programs. But I had the luxury to dream big because I had seen people who had overcome so much. And by a combination of timing, luck, a little skill, I got to Stanford. My grandmother came to every single home game I played. And if she were here right now, she'd say, and some road games too, which is true. She would come to Cal and to UCLA and USC. She also, by the way, picked up my dirty laundry every Sunday, dropped off my clean laundry, stocked my fridge. I had it very good. She'd even clean my roommates' rooms. And I would tell her, don't clean their stuff, just mine. But she'd say, no, if you live here, it all has to be clean. So it's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to share this story with you. And again, it's been such a source of inspiration and hope for me in my life. And so it's my wish that some of you read the book, or even just hearing me speak tonight, that you get that same sense of inspiration. And we need it today, right? We turn on the TV and we see the things being said about our community and just the hate that's being spread. And so my grandma always says, love is so much powerful, and there's a lot of darkness in my family story, but there is so much more light. And so I hope that, some of you feel that tonight. And I just thank you all so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't
I know you don't
clap,
clap, but yeah, we could do hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. I have read the whole book, and I kept, as you were speaking, I said, oh, but tell that story.
I know, we have 15 minutes. So.
I know, but this was a perfect and beautiful. Here, take this.
I will take it. Thank you for getting this today. Okay.
And then everyone has the opportunity to read more about what is an inspiring story. That was great. I love learning Torah from someone else on a Friday night.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
And Dan is going to hang around at the oneg, so if you have questions,
Yes.
sort of formally or informally, he is also volunteered his time to hang out with us a little bit and answer some questions so you can hear more of the stories. Thank you so much, Dan. So we are going to offer our prayer for healing as we do each week, and sort of calling into that space our Torah reading and this Torah that we just heard, and all the ways that we show up for and shape and name and pray for healing. If you'd like to offer the name of anyone you are thinking about or praying for this evening, you'll have the opportunity to do so in the middle of the prayer. They are on bracketed page 371. Share the names of anyone you are praying for, holding close this evening as my eyes meet yours. These names, we add Eileen Andriano, Tricia Ann Steve, Debbie Becker, Nachum Ben-Sion, Marty Berglass, Susie Bernardo, Debbie Berowitz, Suzanne Broder, Andrew Citron, Ken Cohen, Lois Colin, Ori David, Sammy David, Hugh Dugan, Juanita Douglas, Lisa Dougal, Gail Eisen, Henach Ben Naftali Miriam, Diane Fox, Susan Goodstadt-Levin, Jill Gordon, Linda Gottlieb, Diane Hall, Elizabeth Holland, Seymour Hurwitz, Judith Jason, Ed Joyce, Dr. Alan Cantor, James Kaufman, Risa Kaufman, Jerry Kearns, Barry Kessler, Ed Conowitz, Kit Corlos, Nancy Crone, Pauline Lever, Larry Levine, Mike Levine, Beverly Lewis, Michelle Levy, Eugene Lipkowitz, Richard Lynn, Lucy Macaluso, Matt Mascari, David Miller, Brendan Osis, Andrea Pakin, Hugh Pollack, Randy Ringler, Richard Sauer, Stephen Schletter, Shirley Schnitzer, Joel and Jackie Swartzberg, Shmoa Ben Blanca, Joanne Siegel, Adam Sifre, Carol Simon, Jane Simon, Bob Sonnenklar, Erica Summers, Toby Tyder, Karen Untig, Joyce and Stephen Weinberg, Teddy Wool, Michael Wolf, and Yaakova Bluma, Bat Tova Menucha. 586 in the middle of the page. Please rise. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latekel la'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegoralenu kecho hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamachim hakadosh baruch hu. Page 591 in the middle of the page. Please be seated. V'nemar Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad u'shemo echad u'shemo echad. Page 598. Although it has been in some form or another our custom for a while to call into these spaces as we prepare to remember our dear ones, those who were killed during the Holocaust, particularly tonight. Dan, as we remember our beloveds, we remember those whose stories you've told and whose legacies you and your children carry on. And we do that in order to remember to also be agents for goodness and love and change and standing up to all of the ongoing forces of hatred that continue to grow around us. And we pray that our remembering of their lives will inspire us to make them proud and to do better than the world they were born into. This week, we also remember those whose yahrzeit fall on this Shabbat in our community. We remember Boaz Barnert, Mary Berman, Harry Blindman. Is it Blindman or Blindman? Blindman. Max A. Bodner, Rosa Cameron, Russell Chapman, Benjamin H. Cohen, Joseph Dunn. I don't know which camera is on me right now. Maybe that one. Phil Fagan, Jacques R. Fresco, Roberta Friedman, Mo T. Fold, Jacob Galper, Olya Geller, Irma Goldstein, because you're in the space and it's Janie's mom. I don't know if Janie, you're watching from home. Louis Scrabo, Daniel Hagan, Julian Hirschfeld, Abram Isaac, Martha Carrig, Abraham Kent, Abe Cream, Lillian Curtin, Dorothy Levitt, Juliette Levy, Nathan Metzger, Sanford Myers, Martin Bear Perlman, Mary Prince, Doris Rubin, Louis E. Schatz, Phyllis Sorkin, Helen Sugarman, and Francine Weinberg. This week, we remember the Ratner family's beloved Poppy Bolivar Penalba, and we send our love to Amy and Jamie and Justin and Lisa and the entire Ratner and Penalba family. There are others you are remembering this Shabbat either because you are observing a yahrzeit or you are in a more recent period of mourning and you'd like to share that person's name aloud. I invite you to do so now. If you are holding dear someone you remember this Shabbat, either because you're observing a yahrzeit or in this period of mourning, I invite you first to rise. zichronam livracha. May the memories of our beloveds become blessings as we weave their legacies into our living. And we rise together as one community on 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all people everywhere. And we say together, amen. Very quick announcements. Tomorrow morning there is in-person and remote Torah study at 9:30. Breakfast 9:30 to 10, study at 10 o'clock.
Yes, study at 10 o'clock. Come see me if you're a Torah study regular over Kiddush, oneg, please. Just so we can talk about that. I'm not sure the word got out at all, but we'll be doing it. We will be here.
Yes,
I will be here.
Come. It will be wonderful. Next Friday, you know what's next Friday. What's next Friday? Come on, Barnard Temple. We're celebrating our 175th. We're kicking off our celebration of a year-long, but especially a very special service, which we have been working on for many months. So I know you're excited to be back here again next Friday. It really will be very special. We're going to imagine that we are almost like sort of joining our community over these last 175 years in sound and in language, and traveling through what worship was like, we think, with music that was arranged from as early as the late 1800s all the way up through now. And there is going to be afterwards an oneg for the ages. I think we have just about almost 40, and everything's homemade. So we're going to be eating oneg food that we think, again, was eaten at all the times in those 175 years. I know, and everything is homemade by Barnard Temple members. You are so excited. We'll be joined by lots of people special to our community, too, including Rabbi Elise Frischman and Rabbi Dan Freelander and Cantor Sheila Pearl. And it's really going to be a very, very special evening. So I'm glad that's already on your calendar for next week. That next Saturday morning, there's an atrium minyan. We'll say more about that in addition to bar mitzvah. And then the following Friday is our Shabbat and Hanukkah celebration. We're going back to I know, totally. We're going back to Shabbat services around tables, potluck supper. The Benwish trio will be here, and our crew, and lots of singers, choirs, delicious food. You can come in your best/worst Hanukkah swag. So we're inviting, it's a 6 o'clock service because it's the beginning of the break. So it's for all ages and stages of life. Bring your kids, they can come in their pajamas. I'll be choosing one of my very most favorite Hanukkah outfits, which will have lots of Hanukkah themes in it. So I invite you to, come with Ruach and Hanukkah spirit on the 23rd. Okay, I think those are all of the announcements. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I think maybe Ron Lynn should come up to hold our challah. What do you think? Yeah, Ron Lynn is about to turn 90. Maybe we can motzi into happy birthday and then we'll conclude as planned. What do you think? Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Don't go yet. Shalom. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ron. Happy birthday to you. So, Ron, there's a saying in our tradition and in Israel that you should live ad mea ve'esrim, which is to 120. I don't know, that sounds like, but I've heard it said as that you should live ad mea ke'esrim, which means that you should live to 100 as if you were 20 years old, with the vigor and health and ease of a 20-year-old. So we wish you that you will live ad mea ke'esrim, and we wish you a very almost happy 90th birthday. You're welcome. All right, now we'll conclude as planned. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, salam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Thank you to the awesome worship band. Shabbat Shalom, Oneg's in the library. 2, 3, 4.